Hi, this is Coralla at CorallaFicklin.com, WelcomeNetwork.com, Welcome.com. If you want to download any of the study guides or study cards or other study aids, you can go to iStudyGuides.com, iStudyCards.com, anywhere, INIWHERE, anywhere.com, or any of my writings, you can go to Pedians, PEDIANS, Pedians.com. Okay, I've already talked about in a prior video about the dog and how the dog has so many different meanings in English. I've also talked about the donkey, but I call it the ass because that's the original name, ass, ASS. British English, that's no problem because in British English an ass is only the animal. In American English, the ass is the animal. It's also that part of the body on which one sits, the derrière, the bottom, or the backside, or the behind. Okay, now this will be my second video on the dog. I think the dog is one of the most important animals in English. I would venture to say, although horse has quite a bit, but I would venture to say, if it's not the animal which has the most expressions, it's one of the animals which has the most expressions. Okay, so I want to just get into it. And here I'm going to be talking about not just expressions with dogs, but also proverbs, and some of them are much more historical or literary. You can go to iStudyCards.com or iStudyGuides.com and download the cards, and you can see where from where the expressions originate. All right, here's one. This is British English more than American English. You'll see the difference in spelling because this expression is from the 17th century. So a lot of these aren't misspellings. This is how it was. These aren't misspellings. They aren't errors. This is how it was written back then. Dogs barks more. So they have dogs barks. That's not a misspelling. I mean a grammatical error. Dogs barks more for custom than fierceness. So when a dog barks or when someone does something, they do it more because that's what they're used to doing, rather than, in the case of the dog in the case of this proverbs, rather than because he's fierce and someone of whom you should have fear. Okay. It's because he's used to doing it more for custom. Interesting. I like that expression a lot. Some of these expressions I really, really like. I've never heard them before, but I like them. To be a doll, D-U-L-L, to be a doll, dog. And this is just a phrase. It's a verb. It's an idiomatic expression, to be a dull dog. To be dull, to be boring, or an unexciting person. So if I say you're a dull dog, which is hard to say, D-U-L-L, then D-O-G, how can you stand him? He is such a dull dog. That means he's a boring, unexciting person. He doesn't excite you at all. To be a dirty dog. Now this is more slang. Okay, to be a dirty dog. To be sly, to be foxy. It also, depending on how you use it, and if you're using it more like slang, it's to be a pimp. And a pimp, dictionary-wise, you would say a pimp is a man who sells women, but that's not a lot of times how people use pimp. Pimp is someone who can get away with things, who does things on the sly. It's not necessarily just a man who sells women. Okay. I know that you think that John is nice, but I think that he is a dirty dog. He's someone you can't trust. Okay, so pimp, especially if you use it slang-wise, you have to be very careful. It doesn't just mean a man who sells women, because sometimes when people are talking to you, say, "Oh man, he's a pimp. He's a real pimp." They're not talking about that he sells women. That means he's someone who can, as they say, he can get over. Okay, he can pay a penny and get $100 worth of something. He's a pimp. This is slang. This is slang. This is a proverb or expression. It's originally from ancient Greek, And you hear this more in British English rather than American English. And if you come in and you download the cards, you'll see when the date of the expression and everything. You keep dogs when you can't keep yourself. Interesting expression. You keep dogs when you can't keep yourself. Sometimes I don't exactly, I mean, I can understand the context, but the exact meaning sometimes goes over my head. I have to acknowledge that. To be a lap dog. This is an insult. There's no two ways about it. It's an insult. Tony Blair was considered, well, he was called, especially right after the Iraq War started, he was called the lapdog of George Bush. You heard that quite a bit, people saying that. And it was an insult. To be someone who doesn't have his or her own mind, and they just follow, and that person just follows someone else's lead. And the expression and the sentence is, Tony Blair was accused of being Bush's lapdog. Everybody has their own opinion on that. That's neither here nor there. But that's the you would hear that a lot right after the beginning of the Iraq War. Okay, to be a lapdog also has another meaning. Okay, this time it's still sort of insulting, and there are lapdogs, dogs that are pampered or coddled. But if you're talking about a person, if you say she's like a lapdog, she's someone who's pampered, coddled, spoiled, or doted on. Okay, she doesn't know how to do anything for herself. She is a lapdog. She's someone who's never had to really deal with life because everything has been given to her. I guess you could say she was born with a silver spoon in her mouth, or he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Okay. I gave you that one. Okay, this is from the Bible, and it's the Old Testament, and the expression is, a living dog is better than a dead lion. Interesting, because now don't forget, especially if you go back in history, a dog is very similar to what they would say about donkeys or burros, or as in British English, asses. Yes, now not so much, but back, especially if you're talking about ancient times, because a dog was used almost like a beast of burden, although it didn't carry anything because it wasn't big enough. But that's interesting. And a lion has always been considered like the king of the jungle, royalty. So a living dog is better than a dead lion. Okay, well, my time is already up, almost up. Give you one more. To be like a whipped dog, to be like a whipped dog, to behave in a defeated or beaten manner. If you act like a whipped dog, it's obvious that you have been hurt, or have been defeated, or have been conquered, or you have been smashed. Okay, what happened? What has happened to him? He behaves like he is a whipped dog. What is it? He walks with the tail between his legs. To be like a dog with his tail between his legs. I just said that. That means you are someone who's obvious, who's been humiliated. And when you do that, when you walk with the tail between your legs, you are displaying your humiliation, your submission, or your defeat. If you walk with the tail between your legs. I have time for maybe one more. To be a dog fight. To be a violent fight among dogs. But it's also an airplane fight. During World War I, they had dog fights. Airplanes of different nations fighting each other. Okay, so that's it for this video. I'll do one more video on dogs. This is Corrala Ficklin at CorralaFicklin.com.